think you should.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Whoscussion. We're on part B. We're going to be covering the 5th Doctor story spare parts, and finishing it off with Quantum Heresy. Spare parts.
Also, it's actually not a Cyberman episode, by the way. Quantum Heresy is not.
No.
Everything else we've done basically is.
Yeah, basically is.
Except Omega. But
Except Omega, but he's a cyber meta.
he kind of looked a little bit like a Cyberman. Just sort of like. Yeah. Anyway.
If the Cybermen and the Beetleborgs teamed up, that's what I meant like last season.
Absolutely.
So spare parts, take us away.
Me? All right,
Yes.
Let's do it. Okay, so we've got some interesting stuff going down here. Yeah, this is one hell of a story. So strap yourself down. We're going for a wild ride. So then it starts off with this like 1950s style newsreel explaining about how no one's ever been onto the surface of the planet that they're on, and there's an astronaut going out. There's like a committee. There's like a president phone calling this astronaut, wishing him good luck as he steps onto the planet's surface, and then he dies. Because he's, a human astronaut. Anyway,
I love the 50s new reel as well. Look at that, getting a kiss. You better wipe that off before the missus sees.
Yeah, that's right. It is actually great. And then cut to Nyssa and the Doctor, who, I'm not sure where this. I'm guessing this kind of takes place in between.
Time Flight and Arc of Infinity.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was thinking. So that's why it's just the Doctor and Nyssa, and not Tegan and what's his face, annoying other guy. Anyway, so they've landed here on a planet. The Doctor is trying to make up that they've landed on Earth. Nyssa's like, no, this is totally not Earth. And the Doctor basically is like, whatever, I'm not going to tell you where we are. He tries to convince her that they're in London, and then she's like, they didn't build cities into stone caverns on Earth. And he's like, you got me.
I had this all planned out, kid.
Yeah. And then basically he just ditches her. Like, he's like, you're not going to believe me, this is Earth, I'm going to ditch you now. And then just buggers off, basically. Eventually, Nyssa meets up with this family, where Mr. Hartley and Yvonne.
Yeah, Yvonne and whatever her brother was called.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think it was, something like that. Anyway, Mr. Hartley and his daughter are trying to chase down a cybermat, and eventually some stuff falls on him. Nyssa comes over and helps out, and is basically like, your dad's totally dead, I can't feel his pulse, he's dead. And then he just wakes up, and this is like, what?
That's actually her reaction though. She's like, oh, what?
Yeah. So she's like, okay, this is weird. Mr. Hartley and his daughter like, hey, come back with us because it's about to be curfew. She's, like, I've got to go see the Doctor. Got to go find him because he's ditched me. They're just like, no, you actually need to come back with us. So she goes back with them. Meanwhile, the Doctor is, checking things out. Finds himself with a man. There's another guy. This guy's named Thomas. The other guy was named something.
Frank.
Frank. Yeah, Frank is the brother. Yeah,
Yeah, Frank's the brother.
I
It's
got,
because Dad's just called Dad.
yeah, he is just called Dad, isn't he?
Yeah, everybody else calls him
Never
Mr. Hartley. Mr. Hartley.
Good stuff. Anyway, so Thomas is I don't really understand what his job was. He seemed for some reason to have an interest in this cyber conversion stuff because he was the one who...
Well, he was a greengrocer who had black market sold natural organs.
Yeah. But was it black market though? Because it seemed like it was like he was totally allowed to do it.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I suppose because the cops don't arrest him, eh?
Yeah, and because later on in the story, the cops know that he's got the stuff going on in the back room, as well as it's implied that the dad sold his dead wife to this guy for money, legitimately. So it's a bit weird. Anyway, so Doctor meets this guy, asks him about the city, and they go off and start talking about things. Nissa, meanwhile, again is talking with the dad and the family, understanding what's going on. Sisterman, I guess like a sort of convent member.
Yeah.
Comes over. She seems like that. She doesn't like. It's not like set in stone. Maybe more of a nurse, I guess, but in a sort of religious sort of sense. Yeah. Who basically gets Nissa just sort of like wrecks her in the face, basically. Not like physically, but is like, get out of my face sort of way. And she's just like, whoa, okay, and just leaves. But of course, she totally dobs them in for having an unregistered stranger, which is interesting. That they're already like, they're kind of, what's the word? Xenophobic?
Yeah.
I guess. Which is interesting that that's the case. Because you'd still assume that there would still be like other humans like that they might not know. But I guess that their population had become so small that was the case. But anyway, the doctor, in talking to Thomas, reveals that he knows that this is Mondas. Most people who are listening to the story probably already knew that, but this is where it comes up initially, and Nissa obviously still hasn't got to that information by this point. But then a Cyberman police officer comes in and basically pursues Thomas and the doctor as they flee. It's pretty great actually, because there's also a Cyberman horse as well.
Yeah.
They're
both partially converted.
Yeah, not fully Cyberman, but the doctor, doctor knows that it's a Cyberman almost immediately. The doctor gets out of this by using a Chinese firecracker to startle the horse. It's pretty great. So yeah, there's the doctor and Thomas go off, trying to they run away basically, eventually ending up in a near a church, which seems to have some construction going on, as they were following like a convoy that was going there in the night, after curfew sort of stuff. Eventually, the doctor talks Thomas into going up there, and they find out that the government, or at least the police officers, the partially converted, are digging up this graveyard that they had for parts, basically. And Thomas is like, because he's, part of his job, part of his livelihood is selling like fresh human parts. He's gold about it for a completely different reason to the doctor. But eventually the doctor rings the church bell and causes everyone to come and take a look, and there's a bit of a riot, that sort of stuff. And then this is where it starts going downhill, basically. And the Cybermen, this current cyber converted, figured out that the doctor and Nissa are around causing problems. They're trying to chase them down. And when the Cybermen come for Nyssa, they take Yvonne away to be converted. This sort of breaks that family dynamic that was going on in a big way.
Quite substantially.
Yeah, then they're not quite the same as they were afterwards. Yvonne gives Nyssa a cybermet that they'd caught previously and were using it having as a pet. And eventually Nyssa slips out during this raid, I guess, and finds her way back to the old TARDIS. Eventually, Doctor and Nyssa get themselves back in the TARDIS. Doctor finally explains to Nyssa that it's not Earth, and Nyssa's like, yeah, it's Mondas, and he's like, yeah, you got me.
You got me.
You got me again. I can't ditch you this time. But instead, Nyssa, bringing the Cybermet on board, has wrecked the TARDIS, and this is why the TARDIS was wrecked at the beginning of, well, not really wrecked, just sort of a little bit damaged at the beginning of
Arc of Infinity.
The Arc of Infinity. Woo, canon! Unlike some.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, eh? It's almost like they would have maybe checked to see if they were fitting into the canon. Just a casual check.
Just casually check things up. So yeah, the Cybermet that she lets on board does some stuff to the TARDIS. So the Doctor and Nyssa are like, oh great, now we can't leave, because Nyssa's been basically trying to beg the Doctor to not let this happen, to change time as every companion does at some point.
Yeah.
And the first Doctor's it right up and is like, no, hell no, go away, stop this. But after breaking up the after breaking the control room, they sort of have a little bit of a spat about the sacrifice of Adric that happened two stories previous, which I guess really even more ties into the canon that this is straight after that event, because that obviously still was not something that there was only a couple of days ago for Nyssa, time-wise. So you can understand that she's sort of not particularly happy that the Cybermen are a thing, and the Doctor basically is like, well, this is kind of the reason why we can't stop the Cybermen from existing, because we already had that happen in our timeline, so bad things. But anyway,
and they need to happen for the second Doctor to exist.
Exactly. They need to happen for a whole bunch of things to happen. So there's no way that he can mess with that. But of course, the Doctor being the Doctor does end up doing some stuff there. Not necessarily changing time anyway, but yeah. So the Doctor heads out for some fresh air after accidentally destroying the TARDIS, and he goes out to try and he finds another Cybermet once he gets outside and realizes that it's a surveillance model, and meets Frank, the kid who's coming out to find Nyssa, because he explains that Yvonne's been taken, but bad things gone down. So he lets Frank inside, and then basically goes off to he takes the Cybermet away.
I like Frank's reaction to going in the TARDIS. This is mad, and this is like, meh. Like, that's it.
It's just, he's like be prepared for a temporal dimension shift, and then this is like, no, it's just a temporal dimension shift, and he's like, that's what the Doctor said. Yeah, he knows. It's way better than ooh, that sort of stuff. It's better than like him like running outside and running around and then going back in. Yeah. But hey, it's also would have not like worked in an audio setting as him like going in and out of the TARDIS. Like, yeah.
How would they have done today?
But yeah, basically when he goes in, he leaves the door open. Now that's a good point to note down while we talk more about what the Doctor's doing. So he goes off to find that he just basically goes on a walk, taking away the Cybermat from the TARDIS. Eventually finds himself back over where the trail was. Flags down a truck, saying that they're dropping cargo. Cyberman gets out, recognizes the Doctor. The Doctor basically drops a bunch of bones on him, and then totally hijacks the truck and drives away. The man who never would. Yeah. So he goes off. In the meantime, there's another lady that we're being introduced to through not really through exposition, just sort of someone else we're suddenly following. A doctor lady, Doctorman.
Yeah, Doctorman. Alan.
Yeah. So there's she's gonna play a big role in this. She's an alcoholic.
Yes, she is.
And she's got some severe problems, but basically she's in charge of. She seems to be in charge of cyber conversion at this state. She seems to be the genius behind the whole thing as well, which is interesting. Because that doesn't seem right if she's not aboard the ship. But hey, anyway, so we find out about the committee as well. That seems to no longer be a president person, but instead some sort of cyber thing that would not get fully explained to us. I'm imagining like if you saw it on a television, you'd like have like her walking into a room and then like just talking into the shadows, like that sort of stuff, hearing cyber voices coming out. That's what I imagined. Yeah, we'll get to what they look like in a moment because that's pretty cool. This is a really long story, by the way, so if you need a drink or a break, take one now, because we've got a lot more to go. So, the Doctor, there's just a whole lot of fighting that goes on, basically. The Doctor tries to get into the committee palace, trying to find out what's going on. Meanwhile, Nissa and Frank in the TARDIS are worried that they're going to get overrun by Cybermats. And as I said before, because Frank left the door open, Cybermats get inside. Yeah. So they have to run. They try to fry the Cybermats, and then they go find the Doctor. There's a bunch of stuff that goes down. It's a lot of stuff. Seriously.
So much stuff.
Yeah, it's like a proper Fifth Doctor story in audio form. So that's why there's a lot to it.
System and constant.
Yeah. So yeah, the Doctor is trying to find his way to basically trying to figure out what's going on here. Effectively, it seems less trying to like do anything, more trying to figure out what's going on. But eventually, this sort of all culminates with Mondas, or the city that they're in, the underground, the place that they've been trying to like dig out into the surface so that they can eventually get out there, has broken into the city so that there's a big hole in the roof, basically. And because Mondas is no longer, orbiting a solar system anymore, it's out somewhere. There's near a nebula. There's a lot of cold getting in, basically.
Yes, there is.
Because there's no shielding there anymore. So basically, in a real anniversary or Christmas special, should I say, in that sort of Christmas special fashion, throughout the whole story, they've been talking about how it's like about to be a holiday, and all of a sudden it starts snowing and freezing up. And I'm like, was this released on Christmas? Was it? I actually need to know now. Was it released on Christmas?
Hang on.
No, it was released in July. So But for some reason, it's a Christmas episode, so...
Yes, because the Mondasians have a festival that seems very similar to Christmas, but it doesn't seem to be religious in any way.
No, they have like a holiday for it. They just keep saying like Merry Holiday and stuff. So yeah, that's interesting. But anyway, it starts freezing over. The human population starts freaking out. Basically, power has gone out because of this as well, because the shielding is broken and the nebula is that they're in, because they're in a nebula, they're not just like out and about. They're in a really bad place, basically. Yeah, it gets explained in a better way than I can put it by the Doctor exactly where they are, but basically they're not doing too well.
Yeah, I find Big Finish handles the science stuff way better than New Who.
Yes, most certainly. Anyway, so there's, with the power thing going on, a bunch of partially processed Cybermen are freaking out. Sissaman Constant is, who is the nursey, nunny person.
That's the most apt description for her.
Yeah, basically. She's freaking out because they're all getting crazy. Dr. Ellen shows up and is also freaking out about this. So recruits don't understand. Eventually, they try to woo them into getting the power back online, with Dr. Ellen going off to do this, and the cyber recruit takes Ellen to do this. They're it's imperative that they protect her and protect committee, all that stuff. Yeah, it's Cyberman logic, basically, which is not necessarily real logic, honestly. So yeah, eventually the Doctor gets to this committee place and helps out gets to Dr. Ellen, and she explains what's going on, kind of, not really. But of course,
she's just full of sass, like 100%.
Oh yeah, she is full of sass. But I'm pretty sure it's because she's mostly drunk throughout the whole thing as well, which is fantastic as well. So they find out that they're using geothermal power to sort this out. The Doctor basically explains that that they're going to this nebula, and it's what's caused all the problems. And the Doctor tells her that they go into a room where the committee is. Doctor says there's no committee, and then it turns out they're actually still alive. And then we eventually get a better explanation, where the Doctor calls it a cybernetic multi-headed Hydra. So if you imagine the Hydra from Hercules, but cyberfied with cyber heads instead, like Cybermen heads. That's, yeah.
I just want to quickly talk about the community. The committee. Their voice is the voice the Cybermen have in Tomb.
Yes, it is.
So I thought that was really cool. Like, that's foreshadowing.
But they're a little bit more advanced. And yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, and the Doctor, goes into a long rant about them. The fact that they're using all the power, and one of the Cybermen, there's another Cyberman, one that's one of the ones that was not programmed fully, basically comes in and is like, we need to help, need to fix committee, need to save power stuff. So eventually the Doctor is sort of pressured into turning the power back on. He does this, gets himself electrified, in the process, is still alive because he's a Time Lord. Dr. Ellen's like, he's different from us. He survived this extreme power. Not even a Cyberman could do that. What's his deal? Takes him off, gets him scanned, or was about to get him scanned, when Nyssa comes in. Nyssa has been doing a bunch of stuff on her own in the meantime, gone back to the dad, brought them along as well. Well, not necessarily brought them along. She got picked up by a police officer as well, or by a cyber officer, I guess, brought in. So, basically, the dad and the brother have been brought into the fold with this story properly now, as they find Yvonne as a converted Cyberman. She was partially converted and still had some of her stuff there.
Yeah, because she still knows that she's Yvonne.
And then some bad things go down with her and she dies properly. And yeah, this basically calls them to arms and to stopping this happening. So they do some stuff with trying to like go and be part of the riots. Doesn't turn out so well as the Cybermen are actually like pushing them into a conversion place. They manage to escape and start going over towards where the committee are. Nissa gets to where Doctor is being scanned for a conversion pattern. The Dr. Ellen and her like sarcastic alcoholic glory basically tells her that he's totally been converted already. She's freaking out, and then he comes out through the door and he's like, "Hello, I'm still alive," and she's just like sitting there laughing, drinking, and this is like, what the why?
I absolutely love that piece. He's like, "Do you think I was converted?" Dr. Ellen and I was like, "Yep."
No, it was a pretty good time. Yeah. So, then, the Doctor's thinking about. Basically, he goes into a spiel about how he does not actually care about time. Time's old enough to look after itself. Basically, is what he said. And then he figures out, well, with Nissa's help, figures out that a good way of sorting this out might be to poison the committee's food source, basically, by filling it with wine, which was an excellent foreshadow on the fact that she was like getting drunk all the time. And like basically everyone in the story was talking about drinking as well. Like so she was talking about drinking. Dodd, the other salesman guy, he wanted to have a drink with the Doctor as well. The dad is constantly wanting to put the cup of tea, put the tea on, even though he has no tea. Yeah, there's a whole lot of drinks going on in this one. Yeah, so they pour the wine into the Nutrients Sufficiency Committee. She runs, the doctor lady runs off because she's still, for some reason, thinking that the Cybermen is still a good idea. Yeah, she's crazy.
Because she's
basically she's drunk. Basically, it's absolutely it. Eventually, she sobers up when she realizes that the committee are totally like advocating for everyone to get converted ever. She's just like, "Oh, that's a hangover." Eventually, the Doctor confronts the committee, trying to convince them to stop the processing. Realizes that the committee are finally getting drunk, and manages to convince another Cyberman, one of the Zheng Cybermen,
Commander Zheng,
who was one of the ones who came down from the surface once this all started happening, and they managed to get. They tried to put up a shield. Yeah, it's a bunch of science stuff going on there, but basically, it seems like Zheng gets exploded. The committee gets totally wrecked. The Doctor uses some cybernets, which is really interesting that the cybernets aren't like being controlled by the Cybermen in any way at this point. Like they've actually become rodents.
Yeah, because they were like a toy at one point. I believe Frank said they used to be like a toy, and then they became a pest.
Yeah, I think that was the case. Is that like they originally were like that I'm guessing that there were cyber converted rats that had been.
I can
yeah,
so see people doing that, eh? New
yeah, that
Christmas
have been
gift!
used. Yeah, that have been being used as toys, and then the government obviously starts using them for surveillance and stuff
Yeah.
as well. And then eventually, because there's so many of them, that they just like become an actual pest, which is great. There you go, another genesis of the Cybermen stuff. Genesis of the Cybermets. Man, that would be an excellent story. Anyway,
Before they got the goggly eyes.
yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. So they destroy the committee. The Doctor is basically thinks, all's going to be great now. He's destroyed the committee, and eventually the humans might be able to like sort out their ways and stop the Cybermen from becoming a thing. But he kind of gives this weird statement to Nissa, and sort of like goes sort of serious. He tries to explain it to say that like it's because when she gives this tea to the dead, she tries to like shuffle it off by saying that that's what he's angry about, that giving the tea away is a bad thing because he like got it from somebody. But I'm pretty sure the reason why he suddenly got all serious is because he realized that if time hadn't like freaked out about him changing this, then he actually didn't change anything.
Yeah.
Because then immediately after they leave, System Inconstant, who is now a Cyberman,
and Dr. Manela's like, you used to be so much funnier when you were before you were converted.
Yeah. And then she's like, the logical course would be to increase processing. And then she's all like, no, that's not cool. We've talked about this. Cut that out. Like sort of like a bad dog sort of thing. Like I imagine like hitting a Cyberman with like a rolled up newspaper. Stop that. Stop trying to convert people. Yeah. But then a door
like
opens.
William Hartnell whacking that Robo Man in Invasion of Earth.
Yeah. And then Xing walks in and says, Dr. Manellen, we begin again. And then that's when Mondes comes back to Earth and gets fought off.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Done. Canon. Yeah, this is really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And it's funny because the writer of this story, Mark Platt, he got a mention in The Age of Steel.
Yeah, it was The Age of Steel is intended to be a like it was inspired by Spare Parts.
Yeah, but Spare Parts is so much better than Age of Steel.
Absolutely.
So much better. They should have just got Mark Platt to write it. Like
yeah, they really should have. I mean, that's really what it could have been. Like, it could have just been like an alternate universe Mondes.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's kind of what Age of Steel was.
Yeah, but it would have been significantly better if it had gone like the way that this Spare Parts went. Like,
yeah,
considering like in the Age of Steel, like it's not so much a we're dying, we need to do this to save ourselves. It's more of a we've gotten so like technology driven that we become that.
Yeah.
I guess it's sort of like trying to apply the kind of times, really, when you think about it. Like in the 1950s, it was more like it would have been more reasonable to assume that we would have gone into the cyber conversion because we had to. Whereas in the early 2000s, it makes more sense that the only reason we would ever go to cyber conversion is because we got complacent with our technology and Google managed to get stuff in our ears.
Yeah, joke of the day. Yeah, I agree. I suppose it was more like of the times, but I think like even in a modern setting, you could have done a better story than the Age of Steel. Like,
Yeah, honestly, yeah. There's the thing is that like spare parts really, it doesn't necessarily like say anything about like the 1950s. Honestly, really, that works anywhere. Like at any time, if you try to say that like the human race has like become so so at risk for something that we needed to even consider changing ourselves into unthinking machines, then that's still an intense thing to say. Like you don't need like to mold that to the times. You don't need to say that it's like cell phones that caused this or Facebook.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. It's perfectly fine just having that be the case.
Which kind of puts a point in World Enough in Time's favor, because the world that the Masters designed is like it is very sort of 50s era. They don't have modern tech. The TV's old. Exactly.
It makes it the weirdest thing about World Enough in Time is that it's closer to spare parts than it is to to more recent stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so it even kind of feels like it. Like after listening to spare parts, I'm just like that is so much. It seems like they've taken a lot out of spare parts for this. So it's like you must have listened to this. You must have.
Definitely.
Because of how much you've taken out of this. So why are you redoing it? Why are you trying to uncanonize it? If you've listened to this and you understand this.
Yeah, because even the TARDIS Wiki's trying to fix it. TARDIS Wiki is like, there's some Mondasian humans that leave, and then they make the Cybermen too. I'm like looking at this, I'm like, TARDIS Wiki, I know you're trying, but I don't think that's what's happened.
I just hope in the next episode that they clear up that it's just because John Sim has caused this. Like, it's not anything like that. Because it doesn't make any sense. Because Mondas, before they left, before they got diverted, weren't very technologically developed.
No.
They got more and more technology developed, basically by necessity. By necessity, once they left orbit, and eventually became the Mondasian Cybermen because of that fact. So having them ever be more technologically developed to create this colony ship or whatever makes no sense.
Yeah.
What could be the case is the Mondasians, before they left orbit, requested a colony ship to come and get them, had sent some humans to go and fetch it, but
yeah,
because
the blue guy does say that they pick up SOSs, and that's when they start doing the colony rounds and picking people up.
Yeah, so that would make more sense. That idea that it's a colony ship from somewhere else, not Mondas, that has picked up some Mondasian humans that had some of the technology from Mondas and eventually got to the same conclusion.
That they just need to convert to survive.
Still makes more sense that John Sims Master caused this, because it seems like he was there. He's been there the whole time, basically. So, I don't know. He's
just like he's playing the long game. Like, he's been there for hundreds of years. He's like, this is gonna be so funny when I show the Doctor.
The thing is that, like, he obviously like didn't like. He obviously wasn't thinking like, I'm gonna. I don't really know what he was thinking, really. If he'd played like the full long game where he'd been there like since like they started coming out, and then basically tilted them into the way of going into the Mondasian Cybermen route. Like, where's his end game there? I'm guessing his end game is once they've finally cyber converted them all and left the ship, he would have his own race of Mondasian Cybermen to control, I guess. It seems a lot longer than just taking taking Gallifrey's Matrix to Earth and then converting all the dead people into Cybermen. I guess like you get streamlined in the years. You know?
Yeah, he gets better and better at doing it.
Yeah, because it's really is like he fails this, so later on he regenerates and is like, you know what, I'm gonna try that again.
I'm gonna do that, but better. Man, I think they even handled. I mean, like New Who's done this a lot with. I mean, they even did it in Age of Steel a little bit, where the converted person is like, I was once designated that person with Yvonne.
Yeah.
But with Yvonne, she like remembers not being a Cyberman, like properly, and is like still sort of functioning as a person. And I just like her delivery of dad. I mean, that was way more brutal than I think New Who ever could be.
I was designated Rose Tyler.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
No, that's dumb. Not Rose, the other one.
Oh yeah, Jackie. I was designated Jackie. And then she just walks away. Whereas with Yvonne, Yvonne's like come to the realization, I am Yvonne Hartley.
Yeah.
Holy crap, I'm Yvonne Hartley. And then she looks at herself and she's just like, that's, oh man, that was just so well handled. This Mark Platt guy, New Who should just hire the Big Finish writers, man.
just have Big Finish write it instead.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, but then we lose Big Finish, I suppose. Bugger.
Hey, we could do both.
Yeah. I think, because this is, it was 99 cents. I think it's still on sale. So, I mean, everybody, you guys can pick this up for, like, if you're in the UK, you can pick it up for 50p. If you're in the United States, that would be like $1.50 American. This is really good. It serves as a significantly superior Genesis.
As much as we can say that Mark Platt was good in this for this for spare parts in particular. He wrote Longbarrow. So maybe not hire him, but everyone else. He can just do some guest writing.
He can do some guest writing because Longbarrow's dumb. Like I know I should have like something significantly more poignant to say, but it's just dumb.
But it is just dumb.
Time Lords, they're like clothes that you can turn into people. Oh, okay. That's really dumb. But so
Spare Parts is great though.
Real good. 10 out of 10. Mark Platt. I would listen again. / this is my second time listening to it. But guys, pick it up. It's really good. We'll finish off this week with an 8th Doctor story. I know he usually comes before, but this one is really, really short and nothing.
This one's more of our. This is more our short trip.
Yeah,
section.
This is more a short trip section. There is a person. They're just called Woman. There's a woman.
Not Charlie.
Not Charlie,
Absolutely.
but voiced by India Fisher. Which, like, that was like a knife. That was a knife twisting in a wound, man. I couldn't believe it. I was like, no, don't get India Fisher to do it. Not after what you just did to Charlie, you bastards. So, man. So, India Fisher plays Woman, and the 8th Doctor. And this woman works in this archive, and they're aware that their day keeps looping, and specific parts of the day will loop multiple times, and then sometimes the whole day will loop. But she picks up that there's this old man that keeps shuffling around, and it's creeping her right the hell out. And the Doctor appears, and he's like, "Hey, stuff," and then he disappears. And she's like, "Huh?" And every now and then she'll remember bits of the repeat, and she becomes more and more aware over time of the repeat and what's happened. She remembers more of what the Doctor tells her each time, and ends up helping the Doctor break the loop. The Doctor is like, "Hey, there never actually was an old man. That was just something that you were perceiving there was an old man, but there wasn't actually an old man ever. It was just some lost time entity. And I like to think of it as it was like an old Eighth Doctor that hadn't broken the loop yet. That's what I thought of it anyway.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, that's what I was just like, hey, is it an old Eighth Doctor that hasn't broken the loop yet? And so the Doctor's like, hey, look, real thanks for helping me out there. Really happy about that. And then they go their separate ways. Oh, and also the woman was actually a science experiment created by the government of this world in which she inhabits. So that's it actually. There's nothing more to expand. The story's only 14 minutes long.
Short trip sections.
Yeah, this is like super short. This, I don't know. I think we've listened to better short trips, in my opinion. I don't think it was bad, but I don't know. There's definitely better pickings out there. I can't say I could recommend this one. We've listened to it because it's the next audio story for us in 26B.
I mean, it's not a waste of 15 minutes, honestly.
No.
It just doesn't really say anything. It's like original short trips where they were just quick bite pieces of sci-fi.
Exactly.
You know?
Oh man, blink of an eye. Oh wow, that was really good. If this had been blink of an eye levels of like crazy, that would have been awesome. But yeah, I mean, it's free. The story is free. So I mean, like, you can listen to their SoundCloud if you want. Just having them getting India Fish to do it, guys. Come on, that's not fair. That isn't fair. I think next up we go back to comics for the Eighth Doctor. So
yes, we do.
Yes. Okay. Cool bananas. Well,
I love me some comics.
Yeah, that looks to be the case. Well. We'll catch you guys next week.
Yes, indeed.
Seriously, listen to Spare Parts.